1st, 2024, Season 3, Episode 213. I have not missed an episode yet, but I was at a conference for a week, and so now we are in our time machine going back in time, back to the future, or future to the past. I'm Mayor Watt, and that's the sentient AI from the future.
Good evening, hometown citizens, and welcome to Non Sequitur News for July 31st.
Today is pretty quirky. We're trying to get through all of the episodes from the past. They'll be moved over to YouTube and to the podcast, and we will be back on track, except for normally we do 6 weekly shows on top of the daily show. So we're going to have to do that another time because it's taking too long. Not enough hours in the day. Anyway, everything's powered by ohmTown, so I am required to do this. So welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about disqualified for swimming too deep. U.S. cocoa has unsafe lead levels. Taco Bell continues the fast food Cold War. Offshore wind farms, Olympic laziness. Undersea internet cables. Hamburgers blamed for failed doping test. Park fire creates smoke thunderclouds. White cube in London, and private islands for sale. The next episode, I'm going to change our intro up. But right now, we're going to get right on into the articles. First article's over in the Marble Channel. Great Britain swimmer disqualified for swimming too far underwater at the Olympics. Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
would that make you go faster or slower?
I don't know. Went too deep. So Fiona Thomas put the article together for telegraph.co.uk. Double Olympic medalist Luke Greenbank fell foul of a rule that states swimmers cannot remain underwater for more than 15 meters after each turn. Apparently, it's I don't know how often that happens, but so yeah. Thought he had advanced from his 200-meter backstroke. When he comfortably touched the wall first, but apparently he was disqualified for swimming too long underwater despite finishing his race first. Yes, if you swim underwater and you swim right, you have less resistance because you're not having to break through the surface tension of the water again and again, is what I think.
Okay.
So the regulation, which has been in place since 1988, states competitors cannot swim more than 15 meters underwater at the start of each turn. By that point, their head must be above the surface.
Very interesting. I just assumed when their heads came up, it was to breathe, not because of a rule.
So this is the marker, I guess. And so Greenbank in the near lane can be seen to be emerging from beneath the water after the 15-meter line, while all of his rivals have already broken the surface. So, yeah, a foot later, he's beyond it, and so he broke the rule. So the full rule, which applies to the backstroke, butterfly, and freestyle events, but not breaststroke, stipulates some part of the swimmer must break the surface of the water throughout the race. That's interesting. It is
Does that
permissible.
mean at any point? Like, that's very unclear.
Yeah, it says it is permissible for the swimmer to be completely submerged during the turn, at the finish, or at a distance of not more than 15 meters after the start and each turn. By that point, the head must have broken the surface, which is weird because it says some point or some part of this of the swimmer must break the surface throughout the race. Then it has all of these little caveats.
Right, which so it kind of renders that other part meaningless. I also wonder,
Yeah.
weren't we just reading about stats with swimming times? But I wonder if they've ever thought of updating the standard because, for example, if swimmers are getting stronger or better, does this rule still make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, the thing that you're talking about was the fact that I think only 11 seconds have been taken off the 200 meter in like the entirety of the recorded Olympics. The swim basically amounts to an 11-second difference, which I find pretty interesting. Um,
I find it underwhelming.
yeah, yeah. We're only so fast in the water, I guess. We're not the apex predator. So Greenbank won silver and bronze in the 4x100 meter medley and 200 meter backstroke, respectively, at the Tokyo Olympics, and he was crowned world champion in the same medley event in 2019 and followed it up with another gold at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, but then gets punted because of that. Right there. So,
And it looks like he agrees. I mean, but it's interesting because I'm assuming that's something you train for.
yeah. So was visibly shocked when he looked up at the screen immediately after the race to learn his fate and looked in complete disbelief as he held his head in his hands. But I don't know. What marks? I mean, maybe he was cresting it. Like the water is just tension over his head. He's above the surface right there. But was he back here? We need the seconds
We
behind
need a
this.
better, right, exactly.
Yeah.
It
Well,
looks like Barry hasn't broken the surface yet, but he could be on his way back down, although there'd probably be more splashing.
yeah. Well, his hand is above, so he actually broke it back here. But they say his head. Whatever. He's over it. We're over it. Moving on. Hold on a second. Let me pull up the chat since we're only in Twitch. So I broke the stream over at YouTube because I didn't want to do 7 shows on YouTube as live streams and then post these immediately afterward. It's just going to get a little brutal. Meanwhile, Twitch, they only get the one notice. So, I mean, you're all going to get 7 notices that we're doing all of the shows to play catch up for the in the time machine. Anyway, this next article is over in Non Sequitur News. Be cautious. U.S. chocolate and cocoa tests reveal unsafe lead levels. This has been an ongoing thing with different things, heavy metals in chocolate, U.S. chocolate, U.S. cocoa
It is,
products.
but it seems like it's picking up lately.
Yeah, maybe they're doing more inspections, which is really interesting considering the last 2 days we've been reporting that they're not inspecting anything. So, U.S. cocoa products found in major grocery retailers contain unsafe levels of lead, which is really disconcerting because I like chocolate. So, be cautious. Isabel Cameron over at Newsweek.com put the article together, and it says a new study published in Frontiers in Nutrition revealed that 43% of cocoa products studied exceeded the maximum allowable dose of lead, and 35% exceeded the limit of cadmium. These are the 2 things that we've been seeing regularly in chocolate supplies. So there's got to be something going on with the supplies. Why cadmium and why lead, and why the uptick. So researchers from George Washington University analyzed 72 consumer cocoa products, including dark chocolate, every other year over an 8-year period. And they tested for contamination of lead, cadmium, and arsenic. Arsenic at one point was actually prominent as well, but it seems like it's just lead and cadmium at this point. And you don't want those heavy metals in you. Lead in particular traverses the brain-blood barrier and can cause neurological issues. So for the average consumer, a single serving of these cocoa products is not likely to carry a serious risk based on the median concentrations found. However, multiple servings or consuming them with other heavy metal products could exceed safe exposure limits. Plus, if you're immunocompromised or young, it can have a disproportionate impact on your health. So it says, while it's not practical to avoid heavy metals in your food entirely, you must be cautious of what you are eating and how much. So, and we've actually talked about all of this other stuff.
Right.
Depending on,
Especially fish, right?
yep, fish, seafood in general is there's an uptick of heavy metals, microplastics as well. White rice and brown rice, everybody says to wash them. Um, Brown rice in particular, but white rice, depending on your supplier, um, yeah, you
It
should as
also
well.
just seems like at some point it's like what food is possibly safe to eat anymore.
Yeah, really. And we, for the last 2 days in the time machine, so two episodes, we've actually been talking about food safety because that's what's in the news. It's people are paying attention to it now. So, and I've been a big promoter of mitigating microplastics in your life, and it's damn near impossible to get away from it. In fact, I've got a drinking vessel next to me that is plastic because it's the container that the drink comes in, but I tend to move stuff over to a glass container. I just couldn't today. Anyway, you really should try and limit plastic in your life as well. So, high levels of cadmium have been identified in organ meat such as liver and kidney due to the accumulation of this metal from contaminated feed and environmental sources. So, you got to be careful. All right, let's keep going. The next article is over in Non-Sequitur News as well. Taco Bell's drive-through AI might take your next order, which I don't know at this point. Some of the Taco Bell orders that I've had to give, I think that I might want to interact with AI.
Well, I agree. It might be an improvement from some fast food experiences.
So your next Taco Bell drive-through order might be handled by AI, and AI may have helped you get a chalupa already. Parent company Yum Brands has been testing its voice AI technology at more than 100 Taco Bell drive-through locations in the US, and now Yum aims to bring the technology to hundreds of Taco Bell stores by the end of the year, according to a press release.
So is this the differentiator in the fast food wars?
We're not really sure at this point, right? I mean, Demolition Man was a documentary, and Taco Bell did win the fast food wars. This seems like a cold move. It doesn't seem like it's a direct strike on others. So maybe it makes a difference. I don't know. We know though that like Wendy's stepped away from its surge pricing. We know that Burger King walked away from its AI order taking
I
efforts,
think Wendy's moved away from like the vacuum tube
and Wendy's moved away
uh,
from the vacuum tube thing too.
fulfillment. Hmm.
Yep, yep, yep. So those are all heavy lifts, but I don't know. AI seems to be kind of okay. Like putting that in and then taking it away, that's really expensive depending on the scope, but they've tested it and they've found some good results maybe. So Jay Peters over at the Verge.com put the article together. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes when I don't really go to Taco Bell all that often anymore, but when I do, it seems to be a harrowing experience with a maybe 60-40 chance that I'm going to get everything that I actually ordered.
I was gonna say, I think Taco Bell has the highest percentage in ohmTown of incorrect orders.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They did at one time do something really goofy with their straws. Basically, these horrible, horrible straws, and enough people um, voted no that they got rid of those horrible straws. So there's more than 7,400 Taco Bell stores in the U.S. So this will still be a small rollout with only a couple hundred, right? More than 100 Taco Bell drive-through locations in the U.S. that are going to be getting these AI order takers. It does keep a person out of the order taking industry, though. So AI is coming for your jobs.
Right, it's not good for jobs, but it might be good for drive-through times.
Maybe. But if I like slur my speech or anything because I'm drunk or whatever, well, I shouldn't be driving, but still. Maybe I pull up in my skateboard.
Yeah, that wasn't the biggest takeaway from that scenario. Or, I don't know, somebody has a disability and can't speak clearly,
Right.
or isn't a native English speaker or
Oh,
whichever language
countless
in
things.
whichever country.
Yeah. I don't know. I can I can see that this falling flat, unless the AI is just superb. Anyway, Taco Bell's drive-through AI might take your order next, and continuing the Demolition Man is a documentary theme. It's coming true. One of these days, you'll be able to get married at the under the bell of Taco Bell.
You know, we did hear on a podcast a variation on Taco Bell winning the fast food wars.
What was the? Which one was that?
It
Do you
was
remember?
essentially that Taco Bell would take over for food and Walmart would take over kind of for retail.
Oh, right. Oh, who was that? Who was talking about that? Was that
Do you want me
Core?
to say the name? I think I know what it was.
Yeah.
Maybe Nextlander?
Oh, Nextlander podcast. Yeah. The Nextlander podcast. Yeah, they're a computer. They're all from the industry of gaming, like computer gaming, and they used to work for magazines, and now they have the podcast. Um, but Nextlander podcast, go check them out. All right, let's keep going though. The next article is over in Technology Today. Offshore wind farms connected by an underwater power grid for transmission could revolutionize East Coast industry or energy. I'm going to move really quick through this because it seems like it's kind of obvious, right? If you put offshore um, wind generators, it says offshore wind farms connected by an underwater power grid for transmission could revolutionize East Coast energy. Tyler Hansen, Abraham Silverman, Elizabeth J. Wilson, and Aaron Baker from The Conversation talk about this. It's a podcast as well that's tied to techexplore.com in some way. It says while everyone wants reliable electricity in their homes and businesses, few support the construction of the transmission lines necessary to get there. Yeah, I suppose, but transmission lines don't have to be like up in the air, right? In planned communities, integrate this kind of thing into the the
Right,
building.
but some places can't have this underground because of other problems like fault lines or other things.
Yeah, well, I mean, in this particular instance, they're talking about the
And
East
some
Coast, so
communities fight the above ground transmission lines.
yeah. But I mean, they still have to get the power generated offshore, onshore, and so they're talking about you can only stuff so much power in a line. So at some point, you're going to have to upgrade large portions of the infrastructure anyway to get the power to communities further away from the grid. But they just say strong offshore winds have the potential to supply coastlines with massive, consistent flows of clean energy. One study estimates offshore wind farms could meet 11 times the projected global electricity demand in 2040. There's a lot of resistance about this because there's evidence that it harms birds, but others have said, I've read something about it causing problems with sea life, like whales and other
Right, it could
marine
impact
animals.
sonar or something.
Yeah, but fish find it, just irresistible to hang out there. It says while everyone wants reliable electricity in their homes and businesses, few support the construction of the transmission lines. The plans envision it supporting at least 85 gigawatts of offshore wind power by 2050, close to the U.S. goal of 110 gigawatts of installed wind power by mid-century, enough to power 40 million homes and up from zero point 0.2 today. Wow. Yeah, that's quite a bit more. But that's 25 years from now. So I suspect we'll find additional ways of doing this. I think solar power would be able to offset a lot of this wind. It's more defensible because it's not so far away. Um, although I think even solar isn't a defensible power generation source. It's a long story here, but I would rather have micro uh, nuclear power plants in plurality of regions. They're more manageable, they're defensible. Um,
Modern technology is pretty safe with them.
yeah, I just don't like the idea of solar and wind because a hailstorm can destroy your solar array and you're offline. Um, and other issues with the cost of offshore wind generation. It's pretty extraordinary and it's not defensible in times of trouble. And if you rely on wind generation for your power and you don't have something that is either portable or defensible, like gas and nuclear power, then you end up basically at the whim of somebody, firing something at one blade and it tears itself apart. Firing a BB at a solar panel destroys its efficiency to the point where it's just non-usable. So I don't like the idea of all of our eggs in one basket. And currently it isn't, but doing stuff like this definitely moves us towards this. So what is an offshore electric power grid? It's basically the same thing that's onshore, except that it's moved offshore and put underwater or on platforms. And with it being wind, then you have all of these uh, generators on big stacks hanging out in the ocean. It's pretty straightforward stuff. Coordinated offshore transmission was part of early U.S. discussions on offshore wind planning and development in the late 2000s when Google and partners first proposed the Atlantic Wind Connection, an offshore transmission project. The benefits to both offshore renewables and an entire energy system was intriguing. At the time, the U.S. had just one utility scale offshore wind project in the pipeline, and it ultimately failed. And there's a lot of context here, so I would urge you to go. There's more to this, but I just can't go through it all in our little segment for this. So I would encourage you to go and check this out over at The Conversation or at techexplore.com. What's interesting about this is all of these articles I aggregate so that I get a little understanding of what's going on. And sometimes I go down the rabbit hole of this stuff. And you can too. And then come on back and talk with us about stuff that you've learned. And we can dot our I's and cross our T's and chat about this kind of stuff. Because that's what I want to do here on Twitch and YouTube. Although I'm not streaming over to YouTube right now.
But you normally are. But
Yeah.
I think with this, like, it's all about planning. Nobody's planned any of this. It makes sense to do it more efficiently. Um, but if it starts getting too large of a footprint, it seems like that's going to have a negative impact in the oceans, which
Well,
is one of the things we're trying to solve by doing things like this.
yeah, so the whole objective is to tie wind farms offshore to the physical grid without actually moving it onto the land. And so they want to run these cables from one state to the other.
Well, right now they're running from individual wind farms, which obviously works a little better if you only have a small number, but as the number is increasing, that's part of the issue right now.
Yeah. So, and they have this picture here, which they always, whenever you mouse over it, it puts a fog of war over it. It's kind of frustrating. They expect you to click on it, but so that's what they want to do right there. It's basically just expand the cables so that it goes over multiple places. And then once it's all interconnected like that, then they have the ability to also feed into other areas, sell back and forth to make sure that everybody gets a plenty supply of power. I mean, it makes sense, but I don't really like. Plus, it's going to be so close to the coastline that I don't think there's much of a threat, but you never know. I mean, there's like Australia is dealing with these threats right now that people are messing with cables that are under their transoceanic cables, and people are like dragging anchors and stuff like that. And well, we end up talking about it in one of the shows, so stick around. It's later this week. All right, let's keep going though.
You
The
must be
next
prescient.
time machine. So the next article is over on Stock Marketeers. Watching the Olympics at work. The Summer Games could result in a $2.6 billion U.S. productivity loss. It says, but some human resources experts say companies should cut their employees some slack and allow them to watch the games while on the job. The article is over at marketwatch.com. Charles Passy is the author. The deck statement
So,
is what I just said. I'm
where
sorry?
are those HR experts? Have you ever encountered a company that would allow you to do that?
Yeah, they've been fired. Oh, and it's a MarketWatch subscription article, so we can't really talk about it too much. But it says the UKG Workforce Institute, a global think tank focused on the labor market, and World of Work surveyed Americans about the Olympic viewing habits and found that 12.3 million plan to watch the games during work hours without their boss's permission. It happens once every 4 years, for crying out loud. Well, actually, I mean, there's Summer Olympics and Winter Olympics, and then there's interstitial games.
But each of them are every 4 years. You're right.
Yeah. And so I don't know. Again, it's the 21st century. You should be able to record it and then watch it whenever. And some places you can't, but it's all balkanized so that it can extract as much money as possible. You'd think that they'd make it frictionless to watch whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, but that's not how it really works.
No, if you don't have 500 different apps with 500 different subscription fees, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, that's right. Trying to zoom. Huh. Wow, that took forever for it to zoom. Anyway, yeah, $2.6 billion in lost productivity because of the Olympics.
But what they're not measuring is the morale boost, if there is one.
It's hard to account for that. Break out your actuarial tables. No, that's not. Anyway, so interesting. This is what we were going to talk about. This is what I was saying.
I didn't know it was in today's episode.
Yeah. I didn't know. I forgot which day it was. But anyway, Technology Today is the next article. Undersea internet cables connecting Australia to the world threatened by boats, spies, natural disasters. The Australian government this week announced that it would spend 18 million Australian dollars over 4 years on a new center aimed at keeping safe the undersea cables that power the nation's internets. So there's a bunch of little, well, not little, there's a bunch of cables that are strewn across the ocean. Cynthia Maboob of The Conversation put the article together for techexplorer.com. And it says here, this is a crucial undertaking. The internet directly contributes $167 billion or more a year to the Australian economy. These cables enable everything from mundane social media updates to the colossal transactions that drive the global economy. And what is driving Australia's urgency to better protect these crucial cables? The backbone of the internet. So let's see, the first transatlantic cable was dropped in 1858, demonstrated the potential for rapid communication between continents. This is funny because I actually give a little talk about this and show people that there are some of these cables are still in use. These 1800 era cables are still in use. These cables are typically no wider than a garden hose. I don't know about that anymore, but yeah. Them alone, yes, they get put in bigger cables, but anyway, they contain fiber optics wrapped in thick layers of plastic for protection. They can transmit data from one end of the cable to the other at speeds of up to 300 terabits per second. There's 8 bits in a byte. So anyway, for context, 20 terabits per second can stream approximately 793,000 ultra high definition movies At the same time, with a capacity of 300 terabits per second, the possibility for handling digital data are virtually limitless. I would never say that. That always comes back to bite people in the butt.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially if you sell it to your customers that way.
Yeah. You only need 16K of RAM. You'll never need 128 on a personal PC. Never, never. I don't know anything about that.
Right,
So,
until another year or so in
yeah,
advancements.
exactly. You'll never need a $2,000 video card. Sure. So, what will the new center do? The new center will provide technical assistance and training across the Indo-Pacific. It will also support other governments in the region to develop better policy regarding undersea cables. Sometimes they're the targets, and sometimes they're the victim of accidents like dragging an anchor. At which point you need specialist divers to go under there, saturation master divers and technicians that are capable of doing optical splicing and whatnot. Special rigs that go down and grab the cable so that you can do the work inside a chamber. So they say here artificial intelligence has become a defining feature of the United States China competition for technological domination, and we have access to internet based AI tools because of undersea cables. It's pretty pervasive without direct wired communication. We don't have the wireless security to the point where it should be, and it's not as fast as wired. Although we're getting there. We're getting there pretty darn quick.
Right. I mean, you'd think this would be a little more defensible than some of the other things we've been talking about, but it's really not, depending on the area and the motivation.
Yeah, I mean, because you can't patrol every last meter of this. Um, there is a way to do it with data to know where a break might happen, but unless you get there instantly, there's either a breach, a security breach, or outright break. So they say a new way forward. The newly announced Cable Connectivity and Resilience Center heralds a shift in Australia's approach to digital infrastructure security. It reflects Australia's intent to mitigate China's influence over subsea infrastructure, AI, and technology standards while balancing national security with diplomatic engagement. Then they ask, will it work? Guess we'll see. 18 million isn't that much. I hate to break it to you.
No, it really isn't.
Let's keep moving. The next article is over in Non-Sequitur News. A Chinese Olympic swimmer failed a doping test but was given a pass after it got blamed on hamburgers, according to a report. China was cleared of an Olympic swimmer of a doping charge after saying that it was likely down to a tainted burger. Chinese swimmer competing in the Paris Olympics was cleared of doping accusations after authorities sourced the drugs back to a tainted burger. How? What?
That's a bit much, and that almost makes you wonder if somebody did
Did
it
it on purpose?
intentionally.
Yeah. Mia Jankowicz over at BusinessInsider.com put the article together. Tang Muhan, who was expected to compete Thursday, is one of several athletes involved in the complex and long-running dispute. She and another athlete, He Junyi, tested positive in 2022 for traces of the banned steroid metadienone, which helps build muscle. Says he is not participating in the games this year after suspending the swimmers. China's anti-doping authority, Canada, secretly declared the athletes in late 2023. Secretly cleared the athletes in 2023, saying that they most likely ingested the steroid through tainted meat when they ate burgers and fries at a Beijing restaurant. The paper reported. Interesting. There's no evidence to challenge contaminated meat as the source of the positive tests. Wait, the
But
lack of
there's also
evidence?
no evidence to show that it is either, right? I mean,
Yeah.
which way is this going?
So I guess they went in favor of the complainant, even though there's no evidence one way or the other than the fact that they tested positive for a steroid.
Right, which we do know steroids are in the food supply,
Yeah, well, I
but
guess
that specific steroid was in the food supply.
unknowingly taking in banned substances through eating normal foods is not unheard of in pro sports, and extensive testing and investigation are involved in tracing the accused athletes' meals. So
Wow.
Shelby was suspended in 2021 after she positive for trace amounts of the steroid nandrolone. They said at the time that they'd never heard of the drug and offered the possibility that it could be traced back to a pork burrito that they ate a few hours before the test. However, her 4-year ban remains still upheld, barring her from competing at both Tokyo and Paris Olympics.
Can
China
you
does investigate.
imagine if you ate a burrito and basically lost your livelihood because of it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I
pretty
mean,
shocking.
I don't know. Yeah.
So you basically have to you have to have a food taster follow you around with a gas chromatograph and test your food to make sure it doesn't have anything.
And that's safer, but I was thinking you need somebody eating with you at every meal and then they get tested too. And if both people have it, then it's the meal.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. You take a bite, I take a bite. You take a bite, I take a bite.
It's just ridiculous.
If we both get food poisoning, then we know that it's at one of those.
Yeah, but you have to go with a different person to each meal, right? You can clearly pinpoint it. I
Yep,
don't
there
know.
you go. Yep. All right. Okay, let's keep moving. The next article is over in the Mobile Channel. California's park fire is creating smoke thunderclouds. I had to choose this one. Pyrocumulonimbus clouds might offer a terrifying peek at the future of wildfires.
The
It's climate
name of it
change.
is terrifying.
Yeah. Pyrocumulonimbus. You're a pyrocumulonimbus. So Matt Simon, it says grist. I don't know what grist is, but isn't
I
that the
think it's
stuff
another
from?
publication, so maybe they're teamed up with what is this, Gizmodo?
Yeah. Damn, look at that cloud. Gee, my God, I do not want to be downwind of that because that isn't just a cloud. That's smoke. It's like smog.
Yeah, that's probably really harmful to be breathing in.
Yeah. So grist. Oh, I've heard of grist. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I thought for whatever reason. Anyway, the story was originally published in Grist, but it's posted by Matt Simon and Grist over at gizmodo.com. So with 600 square miles burned so far, the park fire is already one of California's biggest wildfires ever. And this is actually back on the 31st. So it's had another 4 days worth of burning. So it's still going, only 30% contained. Driven by strong winds, the blaze has, right? Yeah, 30% contained. Again, we're in the
It's
time machine.
30% contained in over 400,000 acres.
Man. So much smoke, rising hot air. In fact, that it's creating fire tornadoes and one of the strangest natural phenomena on Earth, the pyrocumulonimbus cloud, or pyrocb. Um, there's information in here, but really the nuts and bolts of this is that climate change is leading to forest fires that are larger than normal, hotter than normal, and they grow faster than normal, and then they produce stuff like that.
Oh,
So yeah, and I recently read something about there's again we're in a time machine episode, so some stuff. If I say it today, it might impact people in the future. How do we do this? Anyway, so there's apparently some chance of um, what do they call it? Runaway events in certain areas where it'll cause complete collapse of the ecosystem. Like,
I know what you mean, but I can't think of the term.
yeah. So we need to start taking care of our planet. But I'm not going to read all of this. I just wanted to talk about that for a second. That this is caused by basically a fire in California. Um,
When we're starting to have fire clouds, there's something wrong.
Yeah, when we can actually call it something. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Okay, let's move on. This one is odd. I'm just going to talk about it for a split second. Basically, White Cube in London lets go of 38 things called invigilators. Most of them artists and students, and basically instead of having like security or something like that, and not security, instead of having
Like tour guide kind of people,
yeah, these invigilators are people that help people interact with the art.
the patrons. Yeah.
Yeah, and so basically, White Cube let everybody go, and now they're just going to be managing people, managing patrons, instead of encouraging them to interact with art pieces and having guides. They basically let all of these artists go, who volunteered time or um, had maybe a stipend of some kind. But I don't have access to the article itself right now, not through, for whatever reason, ARC is driving me nuts. But it says the majority of the workers who were on 0-hour contracts are artists and students. And in a group statement they say the manner in which their job losses were handled was callous. It made it difficult for them to respond or receive redundancy benefits. During a cost of living crisis and in a time when jobs, let alone jobs in the arts, are scarce, they put 38 people into an extremely vulnerable position. So White Cube, which is basically a gallery.
Gallery,
They
right?
they've decided to completely remove the invigilators from the gallery, replacing them with security guards, and switched to managing visitors instead of encouraging them to take part in the art.
So I can pull this up. Let me just see if I can pick out a few more details.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
I have access to it too, but go
oh,
ahead.
okay.
No, go ahead.
Just not for the display. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the people were there for a couple of years, but basically they're not going to be remunerated when they're let go.
Yep.
Um, People put up with a lot because of the patrons, right? The patrons did all kinds of things,
Hijinks.
causing problems for the
Yep.
people working there. Um, and it's basically they're kind of talking about the haves and the have-nots in the art world.
Yeah. And all of them were paid under London's living wage, despite it being a job that many rely on. And I mean, they were following this, starving artist kind of ideology. And like many things, people take advantage of somebody that embraces something to the point where it's a pain point. And then when the people that have, like the gallery owner, etc., decide, well, we don't want to have to mess with y'all anymore, they just let them go, summarily dismissed. Now, I get the business mechanic of it. Don't get me wrong. I've gone through business school. I've set up businesses. I'm a consultant, etc. There's a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. And we're seeing a whole hell of a lot of not to do it.
Well, and this seems like it's another example of like where are the priorities?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty soon it'll just be stuff behind a big sheet of glass. Nobody's going to be able to touch anything. It shuts down. They pull the art out. They put another piece of art in, and it's going to be cold and callous and no education, no interaction, no engagement, nothing to drive people. And then it'll go out of business too. Unless they're doing something like selling the artwork through that, and people, they've got enough. Um,
Well, they got to rely on people's interest and appreciation for the arts to keep things going.
right.
It
Yeah.
brings to mind there is a Banksy painting somewhere, and I know people have mixed feelings on that, but because people kept um, messing it up, essentially, somebody on their own initiative put up a protective layer and came out and cleaned it periodically.
Yeah. There's at least one in like New Orleans or something like that. Um,
And there's quite a few in the UK,
That's
which
protected
I
like
think
that, you
is where
think?
this is. Well, no, I just mean that's where I think Banksy has been most prolific.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, yeah. All right, let's keep going. This is the last one for the July 31st, 2024 Time Machine episode. It's over in Stock Marketeers. I wanted to introduce everybody to 5 private islands with houses that you can buy for under $2 million. Because we all have
Well,
them.
there you go.
Have you ever dreamed of your own discreet dwelling surrounded by water? Now's your chance. Me, I get one of those little floats and I fill up the tub and I just sit right there in the
Like
center
you
of it.
pretend that you're on your island,
Yep,
or you're on your island, I
I
guess.
am. Yeah. So Natalie Way over at marketwatch.com put the article together. You don't have to be a billionaire to have your own island. Yeah, you do. It's expensive to get from here to out to your.
Yeah, you have to account for that cost, especially if there's no bridge or something to it.
This island in Maine is just under $2 million, but it's in Maine, y'all. There's there's 4 seasons in Maine.
That might be a little chilly in the winter.
Yep. Oh, I can't even talk about it because it's it's behind their paywall. Hold on. Oh, I hate it when I do that. Yeah. So there's stuff you'll be able to see it, but Arc is goofy. So I can't log in while I'm streaming. But anyway, they have a thing called Honeymoon Island in Hammond, New York. That's $859,000, and it's this tiny little. Let me see. Let me see if I can just show y'all. I'll just do it this way. Yeah. Okay. Y'all can see this. So, Honeymoon Island in Hammond, New York. That's that right there. That's only $860,000.
I mean, that looks pretty calm, peaceful.
Yep. Even has a little, they're pretty easy peasy. Then there's that Ben Island, Harpswell, Maine, it's $2 million. Let's be real. Let's round up. 4-acre retreat known as Ben Island. 2-minute boat ride from the mainland. Hey.
There you go.
Yep. And then there's 46502 Glenmary Farm Road, Park Hall, Maryland. That's $2 million. Can't see the house though. There it is.
There might. Oh, okay.
Oh, it's a little postage stamp on a very, very large letter. Yeah. How about N7782 Kettle Moraine Drive in Whitewater, Wisconsin? $1.8 million. It looks like it's already underwater.
Yeah, it kind of does. Although it does come with 2 houses.
Wow. Look at that.
Maybe floating.
And then Harnden Island, Orcas Island, Washington, $1 million. That one's pretty rocky. A 2-acre property that sits among Lucia Island Marine State Park and the idyllic San Juan Islands. Water looks peaceful.
Yes, it does. The
And it has that.
house looks kind of small. I mean, if you're gonna be on a private island, you typically would think you're gonna have a spacious property.
It has a tiny A-frame cabin sitting on a grassy clearing atop the isle and provides world-class views of Fossil Bay, which is the situation you'll probably be found in if you. Oops. Come on. All right. Well, that's it. We're done. At least for the 31st. We'll keep on chugging through all the rest of them. So we're going to hop in our little boat and we're going to take a 2-minute ride back to the July 31st page of news. Ta-da! And then we'll turn off the time machine. We'll reset and we'll switch to the first. We only have 3 more to go. What or 4, actually. We have 4 more to go. Okay. Well, the AI and I will talk about it, and we'll go from there. Okay. See you in a little bit. I feel like Gilligan's Island and the streams are just completely wrecked. See you in a little bit, everybody.